I pushed open the front door, my bones aching after a grueling night shift at the ER. The house was quiet, too quiet for 7 a.m. Usually Leon would be bustling around the kitchen, brewing coffee and packing Tyler's lunch for school. "Leon?" I called out, kicking off my shoes. "Tyler?" No answer. My heart quickened as I rounded the corner into the living room. There, on our faded floral couch, sat Leon. A large suitcase rested at his feet. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you home at this hour and with luggage?" Leon's eyes met mine, and I saw a mixture of guilt and determination that made my stomach churn. "We need to talk, Irma," he said, his voice steady. "It's about us. And Edith, I'm leaving." The room spun. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. "Edith? Your secretary? What do you mean you're leaving?" Leon stood, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "I've been having an affair with Edith for months now, and she's pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled to the armchair across from him, collapsing into it. "Pregnant?" I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "How far along?" 7 months, Leon replied, not meeting my eyes. 7 months. The realization dawned on me slowly, then all at once. "The conference in Chicago," I said, my voice hollow. "You told me you were going alone." Leon nodded, his shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry, Irma. Bliss, I never meant for this to happen, but I can't ignore my feelings anymore. I want a divorce." "A divorce?" The word echoed in the suddenly too small room. "What about Tyler? What about our family?" "Tyler's almost grown," Leon said, as if that made it all okay. "He'll understand eventually." Anger flared within me, hot and fierce. "Understand that his father is abandoning his family for a woman half his age? That you're throwing away 17 years of marriage?" Leon flinched, but stood his ground. "I know this is a shock, Irma, but Edith and we have a connection. She understands me in a way you never have." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Oh, I'm sure she does, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that she's young and doesn't have crow's feet or stretch marks." "It's not like that," Leon protested weakly. "Then what is it like?" I demanded, rising to my feet. "Explain it to me, Leon. Help me understand how you could do this to us." Before he could answer, the front door opened. Tyler's voice called out, "Mom? Dad? Why are you both home?" Leon and I froze, staring at each other. In that moment, I saw a flicker of doubt cross Leon's face. But then he squared his shoulders and called out, "In here, son." Tyler appeared in the doorway, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His eyes darted between us, taking in the suitcase, the tension crackling in the air. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I tell our son that his father was leaving us? Leon stepped forward, his voice gentle. "Tyler, there's something we need to talk about. Your mother and we're going to be separating." Tyler's face crumpled. "What? Why?" I found my voice then, fierce and protective. "Your father has decided he'd rather start a new family with his secretary." "Irma," Leon warned, but I ignored him. Tyler's eyes widened in disbelief. "Dad, is that true?" Leon sighed heavily. "It's complicated, son, but yes, I'm leaving. I'm sorry." Tyler's face hardened, a look I'd never seen before settling over his features. "So you're just going to abandon us? Just like that?" "Tyler, please try to understand," Leon began, but Tyler cut him off. "Understand what? That you're a selfish jerk who doesn't care about anyone but himself?" Tyler spat, tears welling in his eyes. He turned to me, his voice breaking. "Mom?" I pulled him into my arms, holding him tight as he began to sob. Over his head, I met Leon's gaze, my own eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and determination. "You want to leave?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Then go. But don't think for a second that this is over. You have no idea what you've just started." The day after Leon left, I found myself sitting at my kitchen table, staring blankly at a cold cup of coffee. The house felt empty, hollow. Tyler had barely spoken a word since his father's departure, shutting himself in his room. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my daze. I opened the door to find Tessa, my best friend since college, standing there with a determined look on her face. "All right, spill it," she said, marching past me into the kitchen. "I got your cryptic text. What's this about Leon leaving?" I sank back into my chair, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "He's having an affair with his secretary, Edith. She's pregnant." Tessa's jaw dropped. "There's more," I interrupted. "He wants a divorce." Tessa's eyes flashed with anger. "Oh, hell no, we're not letting him get away with this." Before I could respond, there was another knock at the door. I opened it to find my mother, Lorraine, standing there with a suitcase. "Mom?" I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to help, of course," she said, bustling past me. A mother always knows when her child needs her. I shot Tessa a panicked look. My relationship with my mother was complicated at best, and her traditional views often clashed with my more modern outlook. "Irma, dear," Lorraine said, settling herself at the kitchen table, "you need to fight for your marriage. This Edith woman cannot take what's yours." I felt a flare of irritation. "Mom, I don't know if fighting is the right answer, but I won't let him walk away so easily." Tessa nodded approvingly. "That's right. We need a plan." "A plan?" Lorraine looked scandalized. "The only plan you need is to win your husband back. Have you let yourself go, Irma? Maybe if you put in a little more effort." "Mom," I snapped, "this isn't about me letting myself go. Leon made a choice to betray our family." Tessa leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "What if we dig into this Edith character? I bet she's not as innocent as she seems." I hesitated, torn between my desire for answers and my fear of what I might find. "I don't know." "Nonsense," Lorraine interjected. "A good wife doesn't snoop. She trusts her husband." "A good husband doesn't cheat," Tessa shot back. As they argued, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Leon. "We need to talk about the house. I'm coming over tomorrow." My heart raced. "He's coming here tomorrow," I said, interrupting their bickering, "to talk about the house." Lorraine perked up. "Perfect. This is your chance to win him back." Tessa rolled her eyes. "Or your chance to show him what he's losing." I stood up, suddenly feeling suffocated. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the back porch. Outside, I took deep breaths, trying to clear my head. The sound of the door opening made me turn. It was Tyler. "Mom?" he said, his voice small. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, honey. Just thinking." He came to stand beside me, looking out at the yard. "I heard Grandma and Tessa arguing. What are you going to do?" I sighed, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "I don't know yet, but whatever happens, we'll get through it together. Okay?" Tyler nodded, leaning into me. "I hate him for doing this to us," he whispered. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized then that this wasn't just about me and Leon anymore. It was about our family, about Tyler. "I know, sweetie," I said, hugging him tighter. "I'm angry, too, but we can't let that anger consume us." As we stood there, I felt a resolve building within me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let Leon or Edith destroy what I'd spent years building. I turned back to the house, where I could still hear Tessa and my mother arguing. It was time to take control of this situation. Time to show Leon exactly what he was walking away from. And if that meant uncovering some uncomfortable truths about Edith along the way, well, so be it. The morning Leon was due to arrive, I woke early, my stomach in knots. Tessa had stayed over, camping out on the couch to offer moral support. As I made coffee, she joined me in the kitchen, her hair a mess but her eyes alert. "Ready for battle?" she asked, accepting a steaming mug. I nodded grimly. "As I'll ever be." The doorbell rang at precisely 10 a.m. Leon always was punctual, even in the midst of destroying our family. I opened the door, steeling myself. "Irma?" he said, his voice softer than I expected. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside wordlessly, leading him to the kitchen where Tessa sat, arms crossed. Leon's eyebrows rose slightly at her presence, but he said nothing. "Let's get this over with," I said, sitting down. "You wanted to talk about the house?" Leon cleared his throat. "Yes, I think it would be best if you and Tyler stayed here. I'll find an apartment." "How generous of you," Tessa muttered. I shot her a warning look before turning back to Leon. "And the mortgage? The bills?" "I'll continue to pay my share, of course," he said. "I want to make this as easy as possible for everyone." Something in me snapped. "Easy?" I laughed bitterly. "How could you do this to our family, Leon?" He flinched, guilt flashing across his face. "I'm sorry, Irma. Edith's the one I want now. I can't change how I feel." "And what about how Tyler feels?" I demanded. "Have you even thought about what this is doing to him?" Leon's face crumpled. "Of course I have. I love Tyler. You have a funny way of showing it," Tessa interjected. Before Leon could respond, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, frowning at the unfamiliar number. "Hello? Is this Irma Lawson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Sandra. I used to work with Edith. There's something you need to know." My heart raced. Go on. Edith has a history of, well, using men for personal gain. She's done this before at our old company. Got involved with the CEO, claimed she was pregnant. It was a whole mess. I gripped the phone tighter, aware of Leon and Tessa's curious stares. Thank you for telling me, Sandra. Can we meet? After arranging to meet Sandra later that day, I hung up, my mind reeling. What was that about? Leon asked. I looked at him, seeing him clearly for the first time in days. He looked tired, conflicted. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, to shake him and make him see how he'd been manipulated. But another part, a stronger part, wanted answers first. Nothing important, I lied smoothly. Now about the house. We hammered out the details, Leon agreeing to more than I expected. As he prepared to leave, he hesitated at the door. Irma, I am sorry. For everything. I met his gaze steadily. Sorry isn't enough, Leon, not this time. After he left, Tessa turned to me expectantly. Spill, what was that phone call really about? I told her everything Sandra had said, watching her eyes widen. Holy crap, she breathed. So Edith's a professional homewrecker? Seems like it, I said grimly. And I'm going to find out everything I can about her. Tessa grinned, a fierce light in her eyes. Count me in. Operation Takedown, Edith is a go. As we began to plan, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. Anger at Leon's betrayal, determination to protect my family, and a growing desire for justice. Or was it revenge? One thing was certain. Edith had no idea who she was messing with. And by the time I was done, she'd regret ever laying eyes on Leon Lawson. The cafe was bustling when I arrived to meet Sandra. Tessa had insisted on coming along, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Sandra was easy to spot, a petite woman with graying hair and kind eyes. As we sat down, she leaned in, her voice low. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Irma, but I couldn't stand by and watch Edith destroy another family. I took a deep breath. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Sandra painted a picture of Edith that made my blood run cold. Multiple affairs, each ending with claims of pregnancy and demands for money. A trail of broken marriages and shattered lives left in her wake. She's ruthless, Sandra finished, and she always gets what she wants. I felt sick. Does she ever actually have the babies? Sandra shook her head. Never. There's always a convenient miscarriage right after she gets a big payout. Tessa's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight. We need to tell Leon, she said, but I hesitated. Would he even believe me? Or would Edith's hold on him be too strong? As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone buzzed with a text from Leon. Need to talk. Can you meet me at the house in an hour? I showed Tessa the message, my heart racing. This is it, I said. I have to confront him with what we know. We thanked Sandra and left, my mind whirling with plans. At home, I gathered the evidence we'd collected. Bank statements showing large transfers from Leon's account to Edith's, photos of her with other married men, Sandra's sworn statement. Tessa helped me organize everything into a folder. Are you sure you want to do this alone? She asked, worry etched on her face. I nodded. I have to. This is between me and Leon. As I waited for Leon to arrive, I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say. But when he walked in, all my carefully prepared words evaporated. He looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed. Irma, he said, his voice cracking. I've made a terrible mistake. For a moment, hope flared in my chest. But then he continued. Edith wants me to sell the house. She says we need the money for the baby, for our new life together. Rage surged through me. And you're actually considering it? Leon wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know what else to do. She says if I don't, she'll leave, take the baby and disappear. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, Leon, you poor deluded fool. His head snapped up, confusion and anger warring on his face. What's that supposed to mean? I grabbed the folder, thrusting it at him. It means you've been played. Edith is a con artist, Leon. This is what she does. Seduces married men, fakes pregnancies, bleeds them dry. Leon's face paled as he flipped through the documents. This can't be true. It is, I said, my voice steady. And deep down I think you know it. You just didn't want to see it. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. What have I done? He whispered. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to say we could work it out. But a stronger part, the part that had been forged in the fire of his betrayal, held firm. You've destroyed our family, I said, and now you have a choice to make. You can continue down this path with Edith, sell our home, and lose everything. Or you can wake up and fight back. Leon looked up at me, his eyes pleading. What should I do? I shook my head. I can't make that decision for you, Leon, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to expose Edith for who she really is, with or without your help. As I turned to leave, Leon called out, Irma, wait, I want to help. Tell me what to do. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. This was it, the moment that would define everything that came after. I took a deep breath and turned back to face my husband, ready to plan our next move. The charity gala was in full swing when I arrived, my heart pounding beneath the sleek black dress I'd chosen for the occasion. Leon stood by my side, his face a mask of nervous determination. We'd agreed that confronting Edith here, in public, was our best chance of exposing her true nature. Are you sure about this? Leon whispered as we made our way through the crowd. I nodded, my jaw set. It's time to end this, once and for all. We spotted Edith across the room, her pregnancy on full display in a form-fitting gown. She was chatting animatedly with a group of Leon's colleagues, her hand resting possessively on her swollen belly. As we approached, I saw the moment Edith noticed us. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, a calculating look crossing her face. Leon, darling, she called out, her voice syrupy sweet. I didn't expect to see you here, and... Irma, what a surprise. I forced a smile. Hello, Edith. We need to talk. Edith's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. Of course, dear. Why don't we step outside for a moment? As we moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom, I could feel the tension radiating off Leon. This was it, the moment of truth. What's this about? Edith asked, her hand protectively cradling her belly. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It's about your lies, Edith, all of them. Her face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do, I said, pulling out the folder of evidence. We know about your past, Edith. The other men, the fake pregnancies, the cons. Edith's eyes darted between me and Leon, her composure cracking. Leon, don't listen to her. She's just a bitter wife who cannox the truth. But Leon stood firm. Is it true, Edith? Have you been lying to me this whole time? Edith's demeanor changed in an instant. Gone was the sweet, vulnerable facade. In its place was a cold, calculating woman. So what if I have? She spat. You were so easy to manipulate, Leon. A few tears, a fake pregnancy test, and you were putty in my hands. I watched as the color drained from Leon's face. The baby, he whispered. Edith laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Oh, there's a baby all right, but who knows if it's yours? You're not the only man I've been seeing, Leon. The admission hit us both like a physical blow. I'd suspected, of course, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. You've lied about everything, I said, my voice shaking with anger. All you care about is yourself. Edith turned to me, her eyes blazing. And what about you, Irma? You think you're so much better? Look at you, scheming and plotting. You're no different from me. Her words struck a chord, making me question everything I'd done. Was I really any better than Edith? Had my desire for revenge turned me into someone I didn't recognize? Before I could respond, Leon stepped forward. That's enough, Edith. It's over. Whatever game you were playing, you've lost. Edith's face contorted with rage. You think this is over? I'll ruin you, Leon. I'll take everything you have. As she stormed off, leaving us standing there in shocked silence, I realized we'd won. But at what cost? The truth was out, but the damage had been done. Leon turned to me, his eyes filled with remorse and confusion. Irma, I don't know what to say. I've been such a fool. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in weeks. The man I'd loved for 17 years, the father of my child, stood before me, broken and humbled. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to say we could work it out, but another part, the part that had endured the pain and betrayal, held back. What happens now? Leon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, knowing my next words would shape our future. The easy path would be forgiveness, trying to rebuild what we'd lost. But as I stood there, I realized I had a choice to make, not just for myself, but for Tyler, for our family. Now, I said, my voice steady, we figure out how to move forward. But Leon, I need you to understand something. Things can never go back to the way they were. As I watched the realization dawn on Leon's face, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. The confrontation with Edith had exposed more than just her lies. It had laid bare the cracks in our own relationship, the trust that had been irreparably broken. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The days following the confrontation with Edith were a blur of legal meetings and tense conversations. Leon had moved back home, sleeping in the guest room while we tried to navigate our new reality. But the fragile peace we'd established was about to shatter. I was in the kitchen, mechanically stirring a pot of soup, when I heard the front door slam. Tyler stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "He's still talking to her," he spat, throwing his backpack on the floor. I saw them together at the coffee shop near school. My hand froze on the spoon. "What? Are you sure?" Tyler nodded, his eyes brimming with tears. They were arguing. I heard him say he couldn't just abandon her, that he had responsibilities. The room spun. I gripped the counter to steady myself, bile rising in my throat. After everything we'd been through, after all the lies we'd uncovered, Leon was still torn. As if summoned by our conversation, Leon walked in, his face pale and drawn. He stopped short when he saw us, the guilt written plainly across his features. "You saw her," I said, my voice flat. It wasn't a question. Leon sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated, Irma. The baby might not even be yours," I exploded, the weeks of pent-up anger and hurt finally boiling over. "How can you still be considering this?" Tyler stepped between us, his young face set in lines of determination that made him look far older than his 15 years. "You're choosing her over us?" he demanded. "Over your own family?" Leon flinched as if he'd been struck. "Tyler, no, that's not." "Then what is it, Dad?" Tyler's voice cracked. "Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what it looks like." I watched as the reality of the situation finally seemed to dawn on Leon. He looked from Tyler to me, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Tyler, I didn't realize how much this was hurting you." But Tyler wasn't done. Years of bottled-up pain and resentment came pouring out. "You've barely been here for months. You missed my basketball finals, my science fair, and for what? For her?" Each word seemed to hit Leon like a physical blow. He stumbled back, collapsing onto a kitchen chair. "I've made such a mess of everything," he murmured. I wanted to comfort him, to say we could work it out, but the anger that had been simmering for weeks finally boiled over. "You don't get to play the victim here, Leon. You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences." Just then, Leon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling further. "It's Edith," he said. "She says if I don't come over right now, she'll get rid of the baby." The kitchen fell silent. I could see the war raging behind Leon's eyes, the pull of obligation against the love for his family. "Go," I said, my voice cold. "If that's what you really want, then go. But understand this, if you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." Tyler's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "Mom," I held up a hand, silencing him. This was between me and Leon now. Leon stood slowly, his movements heavy. He looked at Tyler, then at me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, "for everything." And then he was gone, the sound of the front door closing echoing through the suddenly too quiet house. Tyler turned to me, his face a mix of anger and desperation. "How could he just leave like that, after everything?" I pulled him into a fierce hug, feeling his body shake with sobs. "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know." As I held my son, I felt something inside me harden. Leon had made his choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I would do whatever it took to protect Tyler and rebuild our lives, with or without Leon. The sound of a car engine starting outside made Tyler stiffen in my arms. We both knew it was Leon driving away from us, towards Edith, towards the life he thought he wanted. "What do we do now?" Tyler asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. "Now," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "We fight, for ourselves, for our family, and we don't look back." As the sound of Leon's car faded into the distance, I felt a strange mix of grief and determination wash over me. This was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to face whatever came next, on my own terms. The silence in the house was deafening. Tyler had retreated to his room, and I found myself pacing the living room, my mind racing. It had been hours since Leon left, and the uncertainty was eating away at me. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a text from Leon. Meet me at Edith's apartment. Now. My heart raced as I called out to Tyler. I have to go out. Stay here and lock the doors. Mom, what's going on? He asked, his voice laced with worry. I forced a smile. I'm not sure, but I'll be back soon, I promise. The drive to Edith's apartment was a blur. When I arrived, I found Leon sitting on the steps, his head in his hands. He looked up as I approached, his face a mask of anguish. Irma, he said, his voice breaking. I've made a terrible mistake. Before I could respond, the door behind him flew open. Edith stood there, her pregnant belly protruding beneath a tight shirt. So, the wife finally shows up? She sneered. Come to beg for your husband back? I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. I'm here because Leon asked me to come, nothing more. Edith laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. Well, isn't that sweet? Too bad he's not going anywhere. Are you Leon? Leon stood, slowly, positioning himself between us. That's enough, Edith. I'm done with your lies. Edith's face contorted with rage. Lies? You want to talk about lies? How about the fact that this baby might not even be yours? The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Leon stumbled back as if he'd been struck. What are you talking about? Edith's smile was cruel. Oh, Leon, did you really think you were the only one? You were just a means to an end, a comfortable life, financial security. That's all I wanted from you. I watched as the last vestiges of Leon's delusion crumbled. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Irma, I don't know what to say. But Edith wasn't finished. She advanced on us, her voice rising hysterically. You think this changes anything? I'll ruin you both. I'll take everything you have. In that moment, something inside me snapped. All the pain, the anger, the betrayal of the past months came rushing to the surface. I stepped forward, my voice low and dangerous. No, Edith, you won't. Because if you try, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who and what you are. Every lie, every con, every man you've manipulated. It all ends here. Edith's face paled, but her eyes blazed with defiance. You're bluffing. You have nothing on me. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. Are you sure about that? I have statements from your previous victims, bank records, even a confession from your own mother. It's over, Edith. For a moment I thought she might lunge at me, but then, like a puppet with its strings cut, she crumpled to the ground, sobbing. Leon moved towards her, but I caught his arm. Don't, I said firmly. She needs help, but not from you. Not anymore. As if on cue, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I had called them before arriving, a precaution that now seemed prescient. Leon turned to me, his face a mix of gratitude and shame. Irma, I'm so sorry for everything. Matt, can we try to fix this? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. The man I had loved, the father of my child, stood before me, broken and humbled. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to say we could work it out. But another part, the part that had endured the pain and betrayal, held firm. I don't know, Leon, I said honestly. Right now, I need to focus on Tyler, on healing our family. Whatever happens between us, that's going to take time. As the police cars pulled up and officers approached, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The storm that had been raging for months was finally breaking. What came next, I didn't know, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face it. On my own terms. I turned to Leon, my voice steady. Let's go home. Tyler's waiting. As we walked away from Edith's apartment, leaving the chaos behind, I realized that this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. A chance to rebuild, to redefine what family meant to us. And whatever the future held, I knew one thing for certain. We would face it together. Stronger for having weathered this storm. The weeks following the confrontation with Edith were a whirlwind of legal meetings, therapy sessions, and long, difficult conversations. Leon had moved back into the house, sleeping in the guest room, while we tried to navigate our new reality. But the fragile peace we'd established was about to face its ultimate test. I was in the kitchen, absently stirring a pot of coffee, when Leon walked in. His face was drawn, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Irma, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Can we talk? I nodded, bracing myself for whatever was coming. Leon took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about everything that's happened. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I want to make things right. Please, give us another chance. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. The man I had loved for 17 years the father of my child, stood before me, broken and humbled. Part of me wanted to say yes to try and rebuild what we'd lost, but another part, the part that had endured the pain and betrayal, held firm. "Leon," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. "I appreciate that you want to make amends, but too much has happened. This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about Tyler, about our family." Leon's face crumpled. "I know I've hurt Tyler. I want to make it up to him, to both of you." Just then, Tyler walked into the kitchen. He stopped short when he saw us, his eyes darting between his father and me. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice wary. I took a deep breath. "Your father and I were just talking about our future, about what's best for all of us." Tyler's jaw set in a determined line. "And what did you decide?" I looked at Leon, then back at our son. "I think it's time we all had an honest conversation about that." For the next hour we talked, really talked, in a way we hadn't in years. Tyler spoke about his anger, his feelings of abandonment. Leon listened, tears streaming down his face as he realized the full impact of his actions. And I found myself speaking truths I'd been holding back for too long. "I love you both," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But love isn't always enough. We need trust, respect, and a shared vision for our future. And right now, I'm not sure we have that." Leon nodded, his face a mask of pain and understanding. "I know I've broken your trust, both of you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it back if you'll let me." Tyler looked at his father, then at me. "What does this mean for us, for our family?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "It means we're going to move forward, but in a different way. Your father and we're going to separate, officially." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Tyler's eyes widened, but I saw a flicker of relief there, too. "But," I continued, reaching out to take Tyler's hand, "we're still a family, just a different kind of family. One where both your father and I can be the best versions of ourselves for you." Leon nodded, his voice choked with emotion. "Your mother's right. We both love you more than anything, Tyler. That will never change." As the reality of our decision settled over us, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, it felt right. We spent the rest of the day together, not as a married couple and their son, but as three individuals finding a new way to be a family. We laughed, we cried, and we began the process of healing. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my sense of self. I realized that while I hadn't emerged unscathed, I had emerged stronger. I thought about the women who had supported me through this ordeal. Tessa, with her unwavering friendship, my mother with her tough love, even Edith's mother Brenda, whose revelations had helped me see the truth. And I thought about Tyler, our beautiful, resilient son who had shown a strength beyond his years. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to face it. Not as Leon's wife, not as a victim of betrayal, but as Irma, mother, nurse, survivor. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, and new opportunities for growth. And I would meet them head-on, with the knowledge that I was capable of weathering any storm. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead.